Since the inception of the West African Senior Secondary School Certificate Examination, university requirement has largely called for 5 subjects. Mandatory among these are English language and mathematics. Every year, thousands of students run into the cause of either having to resit for not getting credits on English and mathematics or painfully changing career path owing to same. To help modify this narrative, Star Television presents on your screen Learning Garage, a platform that guarantees better performance in English language and mathematics with a team of experienced teachers. To this solution, you all are invited, especially those facing WASC. Learning Garage comes to you on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Repeat broadcasts are screened on Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. and on Sundays from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Join host Ali Sonta Kamara.
If you mean such element, then of course we'll say the waters of the world in that regard.
And Babatunde Gaira Lamin on these days to make a world of difference.
Fraction that has a numerator which is less than the denominator, we term it as a proper fraction.
Hello there. This is Learning Garage and I am Sonta. Well, this being the grammar segment. Well, today we are going to start looking at comprehension. Last week we dealt with clauses. In fact, we have finished everything dealing with clauses and phrases, and now we are on to, actually comprehension. Clauses and phrases are a component making comprehension. Okay? And comprehension is part of paper 2, in language, paper 2. And of course, you find comprehension under section B. It is going for 20 marks. Okay? So, what the essence behind comprehension? It is a passage, could be an article, or could be a narrative, a story, personal, or something general. Okay? Now, of course, you are giving a question after it. You are giving questions after it to test your understanding about it all. So, one way to even measure out somebody's grasp of the Queen's language is to see how, in fact, they respond to questions regarding comprehension. Okay, because comprehension, the 3 components, of course, making it are these. You have to first read a passage, could be about anything, could be about, a given fact, or could be about a story about somebody's personal life or a general, thing that happened. So first, you have to read the passage. That's the first thing. The other thing, you have to understand the content. You have to understand the provisions in the passage. Okay, and then one way to test your understanding, that if, of course, you have read through the passage and have understood the content therein, one way to put that to test is to actually, see how you respond to the questions. And when you respond to the questions under comprehension, you have to do so putting your answers in your own words. Okay? You have to put your answers in your own words. 3 golden elements. First, you read. Second, you understand. And of course, thirdly, you have to what? You have to paraphrase. You put your answers, the answers in your own words. If at all there are questions after the comprehension, you have to do so. You have to respond to them, putting, your answers in your own words. Very key. Okay? That's about comprehension, about reading. It's about understanding. And to test the fact that you have understood what you read is to actually provide answers for given questions. And those answers supposed to be in your own words. Okay? They are largely supposed to be your own words. When I say largely, it could be 1 or 2 words that in fact you will take from the passage, but the rest of mankind is supposed to be your own words. That's very key to understand. And note, there are no ready-made answers to say, there is an answer there, let me just copy it word for word. If you copy word for word, that's a recipe for failure. You don't have to, even when you think the answers are there, even when you think you have seen the answers in the passage, physically speaking, you are not to copy them word for word. If you do so, of course you will miss. You will score low grades or probably nothing at all. So you see, these are the key things to have in mind when we begin to look at comprehension: to read, to understand, and when we understand, to test the level of understanding is to actually respond to questions from the passage, putting the answers in our own words. There are no ready-made answers, even when we see them there. So now let's have a look at types of questions under comprehensions. Types of questions. Okay, if at all we have to read, then we have to understand, then we have to respond to questions as per the passage, and then when we do so, we have to actually write the answers in our own words. Then it's good to actually travel through, go around the questions, let's see the kinds of questions we are asked and what they are about and how should we respond to them actually. How should we do, to write them. Very key to have in mind when dealing with comprehension. So the first type of question I think we have is content question or direct question. Okay, content question or direct question. A content question is a question, or content questions are questions whose answers are physically available in the passage. We can see them in the passage. They are physically available. We'll point them out. Here is one. Here is another one again. We'll point them out. We call them content question or direct questions. Okay? These are questions whose answers are physically available in the passage. We can see them. We are not to even go any further. Once you have read through the passage and have understood the given content, very well, okay, you are on the road to responding to questions that are, of course, content-based, or questions that are direct, that you can see, in fact, the answers. So one example would be, let's have one worse example to see, in fact, what we refer to as content questions or direct questions. So most of these Africans are usually so desperate to leave that they fall prey to all sorts of passport and visa fraud, and they often end up smuggling themselves abroad at all costs. Again, most of these Africans are usually so desperate to leave that they fall prey to all sorts of passport and visa fraud, and they often end up smuggling themselves abroad at all costs. June 2004. Now the question is, mention 2 consequences of the usual desperation of Africans to leave their countries. Mention 2 consequences, 2 bad things that happened to Africans who are so desperate to leave the country when they take the onus to leave the country, out of desperation. Okay, so what actually happened with them as they go on the line? Okay, so of course, the passage, there are provisions for this question, there are answers for this question, in the passage. So thankfully, I've been asked again, mention 2 consequences, 2 bad things, 2 offshoots, okay, of the usual desperation of Africans to leave their countries. I have highlighted, in fact, the bold printed aspect of this passage, the portion of the passage, are in fact the elements that make up the answer. Okay, so the bad thing that befall them as they go, meaning the passport and visa fraud, is one problem they encounter as they go along, and other one would be what? Smuggling themselves, abroad at all costs. So these are the 2 problems they face, and we are told to mention 2. Mention 2 consequences of the usual desperation of Africans to leave the countries. So because the answers are available in the passage, we can see them physically speaking, we call such questions, in fact, as what? As content question or direct question, because their answers can be physically seen in the passage, as I've just outlined them. They are there. So any question whose answers you can see from the passage is called what? A content question, okay, or called factual content at that. Okay, very key to have in mind. When you are given a question, when you are answering a question from a passage, and the passage contains portions, okay, that in fact are the answers to the question. Of course, those answers you see in the passage, physically speaking, we call them what? They are in fact components of content questions. Content questions are those kind of questions whose answers you can in fact see, physically speaking, in the passage. This one is one example. So the other question we have is what we refer to as inference question. Inference question or imply question. So inference question or inference questions are questions actually whose answers actually haven't got any physical representation in the passage. There is no place in the passage where you can find, physically speaking, an answer for a question that is inferential based. Okay, but you will be able to attempt to answer the question from your understanding of the entire passage. There is no place in the passage that in fact will give you, an answer to the what? A question that is what? That is inferential based. Question that is implying kind of. So please take note of these two. We have content questions. They are questions whose answers you can find in the passage, physically speaking. Inference questions. They are questions, in fact, whose answers are based on your own understanding. They are not based. You cannot see them in the passage. They are not there. They are not physical. They haven't got any physical representation in the passage. You will only be able to respond to them if you have fully understand the passage. Okay? So we say inference questions, answers having no physical presence in the passage, but can be inferred from gathered fact received from our understanding. Very key. So let's have one example again from one past question. It is no longer news that many Africans now see checkout of the countries for other supposedly better ones abroad as the only solution to the problem. Again, it is no longer news that many Africans now see checkout of the countries for other supposedly better ones abroad as the only solution to the problem. June 2004. Question. What does the writer imply by using the word supposedly? What does the writer imply by using the word supposedly in the second paragraph? So you see, we are being asked here, the question is testing our understanding, whether we really understand the question, at free will. Whether we really, one kind of question that in fact will test whether you have read through the passage and have so understood it, will be a question that is inferential based. A question testing, a question whose answers you cannot find it physically speaking in the passage. But of course, it's in the passage by sense. It's in the passage, leaning on your own understanding. Very key. So we will not be able to respond to the question if we haven't got full grasp of the question. So you see, it is no longer news that many Africans now see checkout of their countries for other supposedly better ones abroad as the only solution to the problem. So imagine you read the entire passage and monitor the attitude of the writer very, very well. So when you monitor the attitude of the writer following diction means the words the writer, he or she chooses to write, of course, the passage. Of course, one way to estimate, and reach response to, a question that is inferential based is what? Is to, in fact, observe the diction. The diction will tell you the attitude of the writer, or will tell you a given truth regarding, in fact, a question that is inferential based. So yeah, the idea is about supposedly. Supposedly means something, a belief. It's a belief a belief people hold, probably a belief mostly the speaker, in fact, does not believe in. A belief, general belief people hold, but a belief that the speaker, in fact, not in tune with. The speaker does not believe in such a belief. So when I say supposedly, I saw that your supposedly good uncle, for instance. You see your uncle as being good, but of course, I see your uncle the opposite way. Your uncle is not good. So supposedly is one word. So-called, these are words we use to actually, reveal the fact that the speaker, in fact, does not believe in what he or she is saying. Does not believe in what he or she is saying. So here, actually, those who are leaving their countries for other countries abroad, believe those countries are better. But the writer in this case does not believe so. He holds an opposite view. They believe other countries abroad are fine, are better, but the writer holds an opposite view that in fact the countries, the other countries are in fact the better ones. So you see, I've been asked, what does the writer imply? Imply means deduce, mean? What does it mean actually? What does it imply by using the word supposedly in the second paragraph? You see? So please, one way to arrive at answers from about a question that are inferential based is to monitor the diction, the words. And you will only be able to respond to questions that are inferential based when you have got full grasp of the entire passage. You cannot just have one. You cannot just go on to have an idea about one paragraph, leaving the remaining ones. Mostly, you have to have a comprehensive understanding, complete understanding of the entire passage to be able to respond to questions that are inferential based, meaning question asking your own understanding, asking about the understanding. These are questions actually whose answers you cannot find in the passage, physically speaking. The sense is there, but you cannot find physical words for them as answers. Very key to understand. So we proceed. So now questions range from A to G and sometimes H, covering content questions and those devoted to inferential type and grammar type, meaning figures of speech, phrases and clauses, interpretation of idioms as per context, and vocabulary replacements. So these are the questions we find under comprehension. But basically, we will put them into two parts. And these are what? The content questions, the questions whose answers you can find physically speaking in the passage. We have inference question. Okay, these are questions whose answers are not there. The answers are based on your own complete understanding of the passage. You see? So we look at another one, phrases and clauses. We spent 2 weeks looking at phrases and clauses and in fact repeating, those elements. Repeating the topics we covered over and again. So I will not even spend time talking about phrases and clauses and what they are about, because we have spent time dealing with them. But of course, the key thing I would say is that when you are asked to respond to a given expression, to determine its name and its function, the grammatical name and its function, if you are given a question, if you have to respond to the kind of question at once under comprehension, please go through the following steps. The first thing, try to understand whether the underlying expression is a phrase or a clause. That's the first thing to do. To estimate whether it's a phrase or clause, and a phrase haven't got, a subject and a verb. But a clause, in fact, have these two elements. Okay? A clause is supposed to have a subject and what? And a final verb. A phrase lacks these two golden traits. Okay? So that's one way to know. And the first task is to determine whether it's a phrase or clause. And the other one is what? Is to in fact tell if it's a phrase, what kind of phrase is it? If it's a clause, what kind of clause is it? That's very key to have in mind. And of course, thirdly, if it's a noun clause, for example, you have to tell its function, whether it's coming as subject or as object. If it is an adverbial phrase, you have to tell which word it modifies. If it's adjectival, again, the same thing applies. So 3 steps to go through. The first thing, determine whether it's a phrase or clause, the line expression. Second, you have to make reliable effort to know whether if it's a clause, what kind of clause is it? If it's a phrase, what kind of clause is it? Very, very key. And thirdly, if it is, for example, an adjectival clause, you have to tell its function, what it qualifies, what noun or pronoun it qualifies in the sentence. Very key at that. And when you are doing that, also don't forget to have the following things in mind. When you are asked about the function of a noun phrase or a noun clause, say it functions as either as subject, as object, as complement, and as what? Object of the preposition. That's for noun clause and noun phrase. But when you are asked about the function of an adjectival phrase or adjectival clause, say what? It qualifies. Okay? Don't say it modifies or it describes. These 3 are fine, generally speaking. Outside words can say it modifies, can say it describes. Okay? But of course, WAEC has got a benchmark. WAEC has got set criteria. Okay? In fact, they follow. So of course, we'll say what? It qualifies instead of what? It modifies or it describes. So if it is an adjectival clause or phrase, say it qualifies instead of saying it describes or it modifies. And say it qualifies. As for adverbial phrase or adverbial clause, say why it modifies. Adverbial phrase or clause, say it modifies. Adjectival phrase or clause, say it qualifies. If it's a noun phrase or clause, say it functions as a subject or as an object or as subject complement or as object of the preposition. Anyway it comes. So of course I hope of course you have understood them, you have gone through lesson dealing with those elements. I think so we don't have to spend time going through them again. Okay, what I've given you regarding this aspect in fact is so very key, that the 3 steps. Try to understand whether the line expression is a noun, it's a phrase or clause. Second thing, of course, try to estimate whether if it's a clause, what kind of clause is it? If it's a phrase, what kind? And of course, the function again. You have to tell, whether in fact, if it is a noun clause, how it comes, whether it's function as subject, if it's an another clause, whether which one it modifies. These are very key to have in mind. So we proceed. Now, we come down to word replacement. And then replacing words under comprehension is so very key. And then these are the 2 components to have in mind, and one is so very important. Okay, one is more important than the other. The 2 are important, but one is more important than the other. So to replace a word, they will give you a number of vocabulary words, a number of words, 5 words, mostly 5 words. Okay, to replace. The line 5 words. So, and when you are to replace a word, that means to bring in another word in the place of underlined word. That word has to fit in both in meaning, it has to fit in well, both in meaning and in grammar. The word you bring to replace the underlined word has to fit in well both in meaning and in grammar. When I mean in grammar, if the word is a noun, bring about a noun. If the word is a verb, bring about a verb. If the verb is in past tense, let it be in past tense, and the meaning should be the same. So now listen, we have connotative meaning. Okay, I want to do what? Associated or contextual meaning. Sometimes you have to, in fact, depend on contextual meaning. And in fact, that's it's more important. Okay, it's more important to what? To depend on the context. Okay, the context of a word means the meaning that a word has from, the meaning that is given to a word from other words around it. Okay, the meaning a word receives from other words around it, we call it context. The meaning a word receives, from other words around it, That's what we refer to as connotative meaning, or what we refer to as associated meaning or contextual meaning. Next, we have denotative meaning. Denotative meaning actually is dealing with what? With the dictionary meaning. And mostly you are not to depend on the dictionary meaning of a word. Mostly. You have to depend on context to determine the meaning of a word. If you depend on dictionary meaning, mostly you miss the answer. So you don't take along with you dictionary in the hall. So you really have to depend on associated meaning. Okay, the meaning a word has, the meaning a word receives from other words around it. That's what we refer to as contextual meaning, the context of a word, the meaning it has. So my advice is depend on context to arrive at the meaning of a word. So let's just try some examples. The performer stole the show with his African dance. So now we know steal, the past tense being stole, is to take something without permission. When you take something without permission, you steal it. That's the meaning we have, generally speaking. But here, if we survey the context, we survey the supplied meaning given to stole, you will realize that in fact stole has got a different meaning here. So you see, the fact that we have a performer, we have in fact show, we have African dance, these 3 words, these are associated, they offer us a meaning that in fact, different from what we have generally speaking when we talk of steal, past tense being stole. You see, so here, steal or stole does not mean to take something without permission, to snatch. Here's what it means. 1, The performer what? Won the show with his African dance. You see, when we put in won, it reads well, it's fitting both in meaning and what and in grammar. Grammar here it means the word is a verb and won is a verb, and the word is in past tense and won is in past tense too. You see? And we can either say won or took hold of. The performer what? Took hold of the show with his African dance. You see? So associated meaning. Next. He stole across the room, trying not to wake the sleeping child. He stole across the room. You see again? So the meaning, the dictionary meaning about taking something not your own or without permission is not felt here. It's not felt. Steal has to steal means to take something without permission. Mostly, in some, odd way. So here you see about the issue of across the room, trying not to wake sleeping child. The idea around this one give us a clear clue that in fact steal or stole cannot mean to snatch. Cannot even go along with the feeling that it means to snatch. No. Here, we know what it means what? Moved silently or moved swiftly. So of course, he moved silently across the room, trying not to wake the sleeping child. You see? That's it. So you see, you have to depend on the context to arrive at, the meaning supplied to a word. Very key. But if you depend on dictionary, mostly you end up scoring, of course, 0. Very key at that. So when you replace a word, what two things? You have the meaning has to be the same with the one you are replacing. Secondly, the grammar has to be the same with that you are replacing. If the word is a noun, you must bring back about a noun. If the noun is plural, you must bring about a plural noun. Okay? So the meaning should be the same and the grammar should be the same again. So note when we replace a word, we must ensure that the replaced elements fit in well both in meaning and in grammar. Otherwise, we may endeavor fruitlessly. You see? So we come down to the other question we'll find on the comprehension passage. Questions on the comprehension passage. And in fact, they are what? They are questions on figures of speech. These are devices. Okay? There are tens and tens of them, many of them. But only a few of them are mostly considered at worst. Okay? Only a few of them are considered at worst. And among them, you have simile, the metaphor, personification, irony, hyperbole, paradox, rhetorical question, euphemism, oxymoron, and mostly you find simile, metaphor, personification, irony, hyperbole. They're just, we have the common ones are in fact these, the following. You find simile, metaphor is common, personification is another one again, irony is common, hyperbole is common, rhetorical question is common, and of course euphemism. So these are mostly common. There are a number of them. We have a number of them, but these are mostly common. Simile is when you compare two things, using like or as, and some experts say even than at that. You see, the man runs like a deer. You are comparing the state at which the man runs to a deer, kind of. You see, so metaphor, when you compare two things, removing the as and the like, say direct comparison, kind of. For instance, you are a lion. You are a lion. You are comparing this man to a lion. Say this man has strength, is fearless. Let's say he's a 5-0 in the street, for instance. So you watch the attribute of this man, and then see, in fact, watch the attributes of lion, and you see how, in fact, they are alike, kind of. So what we refer to as a metaphor. So we say the man is a lion, no as, no like. If we say the man is like a lion, now what? That was a simile. But the man is a lion is a typical what? Metaphor. Okay, the man is a lion. You compare the man's attributes to that of what? Attributes to what? To those of what? Those of the lion. Okay, that's very key to have in mind. We have personification, when you give human qualities to lifeless objects, and sometimes even animal again. When you give human qualities, we can imagine, we can think, we believe, we can talk, we can get angry. So these are human qualities. When you give them to lifeless objects or animals or inanimate objects, they become what? You personify them. Example, you have cartoon films. You see a lion remembering a thing that happened years ago, kind of, you see. So So if I say the moon is smiling, how can the moon smile? The weather is very angry. How can the weather angry? For instance, the thunder roar. How can the thunder roar? You see, so you are what? You are kind of personifying. Roar is typical what? A typical, it could be also passing for a metaphor. The lion roar. The thunder roar can also passing for metaphor, and also can also passing for personification. But personification is mostly when you use human attributes. You give them to lifeless object, or animal like that. Okay, so we have irony. Irony is what when you say one thing and you mean the opposite. We have a number of irony, but okay, we have dramatic irony, we have Socratic irony, you have situational irony, we have of course we have verbal irony. When you say one thing and you mean the opposite, that's very key. So if you say a man is short when in reality the man is very tall in practical terms, the man is tall in practical terms, and you say the man is short in reality, that is irony. It's a verbal irony. The man is short when in reality, in practical terms, the man is tall, is what? Irony. Next we have hyperbole. Don't say hyperbole, it's hyperbole. And hyperbole is what? It's about, making things big, saying things to exaggerate, to make things bigger, taking them out of, for instance, context. Immense pressure, so immense pressure, how can pressure be immense? Making it bigger than that. I can eat a mountain what? A mountain of fufu. How can you do that? The person is what? I am very hungry to a point that I can eat a mountain of fufu. That is typically hyperbolic kind of. You are kind of saying, you are giving us a clue about the extent to which this person is hungry. We are being given a clue to the extent to which this person is hungry, to say, the way I am hungry, the manner in which I'm hungry, I can even eat a mountain of fufu kind of. You see, so that's hyperbolic. Next, we have paradox. Paradox is, a statement going against itself, kind of. If you say, for instance, somebody say, shall I say, let me love thee if I love thee not. Let me love thee if I love thee not, for instance. The statement is going against itself, and sometimes it's mostly about the truth. Very key. So we have rhetorical question. When you ask a question that in fact does not require any answer. Mostly the question should not require an answer. Say for instance, somebody who has fallen ill for years and has gone to different places to seek redress, to look for medication, and has fallen on bad times to have one. So we say, of course, to God, when, will I have my cure, for instance? When will I have my cure? Kind of. That's typically a question that is, RQ question, kind of. A question not needing response. So we have euphemism. Euphemism, well, is when you say something that is unpleasant, shall I say, in a good way, in a good manner, kind of. You manage language. This is common among politicians. They manage language, for instance. So you say, his grandfather has joined the choir in heaven, for instance. To mean that he has died. To say he has died is too harsh. To say somebody is, to say people who are short are temperamental is so direct and very harsh. If I'm short and you in the presence of somebody saying that, to say people who are short are temperamental, I must go angry. So to codify, make that one fine, we say what? To provide better rules for I would say, the vertically challenged are temperamental. To mean that those who are short go angry easily, kind of. You see, so that's euphemism. Something to say again. I want to use the toilet, for instance. That's very open. You say what? I want to use the restroom. The restroom is, of course, euphemistic to say toilet. Restroom is fine. Okay, you will also say again, John, the loo, these are all there. Then we come to oxymoron. Oxymoron, of course, is when, of course, you put two opposite things side by side. They are opposites and they are side by side. For instance, civil war. War and civil war. Like for instance, you say, again, bittersweet. See, these are two opposite words, bittersweet. So these are the kind of meaning you have when you have this one. But these are the figure of speech you have to understand, study them carefully speaking, and mostly you are asked the following questions every other year. Sometimes you are asked about the name of the kind of figure of speech, and you are asked again about the meaning. So when you ask about the meaning, you are not asked to define the figure of speech. You are asked to tell what is being compared, if it's about comparison. Okay? You are asked to tell what is being compared. You are not asked to define the figure of speech. Of course, no. So sometimes you are just asked about the figure of speech, tell the figure of speech, and that's okay. And other times you are asked to give both the figure of speech and the meaning. And when you say the meaning, you are not asked to define the figure of speech, please. Alright, so we are going for a break. We'll come back, we'll look at one old passage. And let's try to see which questions are inferential, meaning questions that haven't got, physical answers in a passage. Okay, and we'll look at questions, in fact, that are content-based, meaning questions that have got physical answers in a given passage.
Since the inception of the West African Senior Secondary School Certificate Examination, university requirement has largely called for 5 subjects. Mandatory among these are English language and mathematics. Every year, thousands of students run into the cause of either having to resit for not getting credits on English and mathematics, or painfully changing career path owing to same. To help modify this narrative, Star Television presents on your screen Learning Garage, a platform that guarantees better performance in English language and mathematics with a team of experienced teachers. To this solution, you all are invited, especially those facing WASC. Learning Garage comes to you on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Repeat broadcasts are screened on Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. and on Sundays from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Join host Alisonta Kamara.
If you mean such element, then of course we'll say the waters of the world in that regard.
And Babatunde Gaira Lamin on these days to make a world of difference.
Fraction that has a numerator which is less than the denominator, we term it as a proper fraction.
Alright, welcome back. And we have finished the first part of this class. Now we are going to look at one full passage, one past question. We are going to read it, okay, together. You are going to, of course, join me as I read this one. And then together, let's see which questions are inferential. And let's see which questions are direct, meaning questions whose answers we can find in the passage. Okay, so we can now start. Was June 2002 when health workers first came to the village and talked about family planning. No one took them seriously, including Amusa, whose young wife was then pregnant with their first baby. Had their fathers and forefathers before them not had many wives and children as they desired? Had they not been able to take care of their families? So everyone shunned the family planning clinic, which was established in the village shortly afterwards. 12 years later, Amusa was clerical assistant in the city and lived with his wife and 8 children in a single room because he could not afford larger quarters. For as long as he could remember, his large family had been going through difficult times which appeared to be worsening lately. Only yesterday, his 3rd child had been sent away from school because a parent could not replace her old and torn school uniforms. Last year, their first son could not proceed to secondary school as the family could not afford the cost. Then, recently, the landlord had announced his intention to increase the rent. Amusa found himself thinking about the days when he was himself a young child. His own father had 2 wives and 13 children, yet, as far as he could remember, the family had not faced anything similar to what he was going through now. He suddenly realized that this was because the times had changed and that the requirement of modern living put great pressure on large family sizes. His father's time and age had been different. He had been a successful farmer in the village, had lived in his own house, employed members of his large family as farm hands, and fed everyone from the abundance of the farm. On the other hand, Amusa lived in a city on a limited income. He had no farmland, not even vegetable garden, and had to pay for everything from his rental room to the smallest domestic need of his family, and at 4 or 5 times what they cost a few years before. It was then that he sadly remembered that the health workers and the gospel of family planning. How he wished he had listened and taken their advice. Unfortunately, he had not. And what was even more unfortunate was that the millions in Amusa's shoes became wiser only when it was too late. We are going over this one again for better understanding. Please join me as we go. When health workers first came to the village and talked about family planning, no one took them seriously, including Amusa, whose young wife was then pregnant with their first baby. Had their fathers and forefathers before them not had many wives and children as they desired? And had they not been able to take care of their families? So everyone shunned the family planning clinic, which was established in the village shortly afterwards. 12 years later, Amusa was clerical assistant in the city and lived with his wife and 8 children in a single room because he could not afford a larger quarters. For as long as he could remember, his large family had been going through difficult times which appeared to be worsening lately. Only yesterday, his 3rd child had been sent away from school because her parents could not replace her old and torn school uniforms. Last year, their first son could not proceed to secondary school as the family could not afford the cost. Then, recently, the landlord had announced his intention to increase the rent. Amusa found himself thinking about the days when he was himself a young child. His own father had 2 wives and 13 children, yet, as far as he could remember, the family had not faced anything similar to what he was going through now. He suddenly realized that this was because the time had changed and that the requirement of modern living puts great pressure on large family sizes. His father's time and age had been different. He had been a successful farmer in the village, had lived in his own house, employed members of his large family as farm hands, and fed everyone from the abundance of the farm. On the other hand, Amusa lived in a city on a limited income. He had no farmland, not even vegetable garden, and had to pay for everything from his rental room to the smallest domestic need of his family, and at 4 or 5 times what they cost of a few years before. It was then that he sadly remembered the health workers and their gospel family planning. How he wished he had listened and taken their advice. Unfortunately, he had not. And what was even more unfortunate was that the millions in Amusa's shoes became wiser only when it was too late. This is the passage. Now, for you, when you are at WAS, you are advised to go over it more than 2 times. In fact, what is key you have to comprehend. If you don't understand, go over it again. So the first question, what advice do you think the health workers gave to the villagers? What advice do you think the health workers gave to the villagers? Okay? If we skim through the passage, there is no place in this passage that in fact will serve as a physical aspect of the answer to this question. It means this question is typically inferential, meaning it's a question that has to do that in fact is dependent on our understanding of the passage. Okay, there is no line, there is no area in this passage that has got to do that in fact carries words doing with the answer. Okay, so we have been asked, in fact, what advice do you think? See, talking about what? Your understanding. Do you think the health workers gave to the villagers? So of course, they what? They gave, family planning advice to the health workers. To the villagers. So the health workers gave family planning advice. That's the idea. When we go through the entire, the first paragraph, even some aspects of the third paragraph, we have what? We have clue. And in fact, the health workers, in fact, gave to the people in the village what? Is about the advice they gave them is what? About what? Family planning. That's it. So you see? So this question is inference based. If you are looking for a word or a part in the passage that will give an answer, you're not fine. You're not fine at all. So it dependent on your what? It dependent on your understanding of what? On your understanding of the passage itself. Next, give 2 reasons why the villager did not take the health workers seriously. Give 2 reasons why the health workers did not. So this question, if you come to the passage, you will see. So we asked again, give 2 reasons why the health worker did not take why the villager did not take the health workers seriously. Why they didn't take the workers seriously. And there are portions in the passage that provide us answer. So we go back to the question. Give two reasons why the villager did not take the health worker seriously. And here we are. One will say, we have, in fact, they did not take the health worker seriously, and we have the following reasons. The first one, we have this line contains one first reason. This line down to, in fact, here, this line contains the first reason. Meaning, so why? Because the fathers and forefathers had large families. That's it. That could be one reason. So no problem. And the other reason, in fact, why they didn't take the advice of the health workers seriously is, in fact, what? And our forefathers were able to take care of these large families. So meaning, this question has got answers, in fact, in the passage. There are physical aspects containing the answers for this question. 2 reasons, and we have seen them now. But when you write the answer, remember, we are what? Not to copy them word for word. If you do so, you score no mark. So for the first answer, I will say what? Their fathers and forefathers had what? Large families. We'll stop there. And for the other one, you see what? They could what? They took care of them. They took care of them. Instead of what? Writing all these ones. If you write all of them again, you'll be given 0 for such answers. So you are not to. Please, you are not to respond to question that regard, to copy them word for word. You see? So because this kind of question has got answers in the passage, and we have seen them now, we refer to this kind of question as what? As, content question or direct question. Okay? We proceed to the next question. Give 2 indications of Amusa's financial difficulties. 2 indications of Amusa's financial difficulties. In fact, Amusa had financial difficulty. We have a number of them. There are a number of indications in the passage that, in fact, give us clue that, in fact, Amusa, had difficulty. So you see, of course, let's go through areas. The fact that, Amusa could not even replace, this one is one, could not replace the old and torn uniforms of his daughter is one reason that, in fact, Amusa had difficulties financially. That's one reason. And of course, in fact, it could not, that their first son could not proceed. You see, we have another one again. Here and here again contains another one again. And here it ends. So we have a number of areas in this passage that, in fact, will give us clue that, in fact, Amusa had difficulties financially. Amusa found himself thinking about the days when he was himself a child, his father, whatever. So these are areas containing, in fact, giving us clue that in fact Amusa has got difficulty financially. And again, we have what? That in fact, he lived with his wife and 8 children in a single room. Wow. In a single room because he could hardly afford a larger quarter. You see, this one gives us another one again. So how could a husband, with his wife and 8 children live in one room? You give you a clear clue about difficulties the person has financially, about poverty and that. So these are areas. So but we have been asked to just give 2. So among these 3 or 4 we have here, you just take 2. So and then you put them in your own words. You will extract 1 or 2 that are very key, and the remaining words supposed to be your own words. Very, very key. There are no ready-made answers on the comprehension. You have to respond to them. In your own words. Just take 1 or 2 words that are very, very key. We call them apt lifting. You can lift 1 or 2 words that in fact are so very essential. If you leave them behind, that in fact you have problem with the answer. So we have Amusa could not replace. He could not replace. His child torn. Old and torn uniform. That could be one. That one is fine for an answer. And in fact, he lived in a single room. His last family was living in a single room. That also gives you another clue again about his difficulty. So you see, you put them in your own words and then areas. So because this question has got portions, physical portion in the passage, representing the answer, we call this question as what? In fact, what? As content question or direct question. So we come to the next one. Mention any 2 differences between Amusa's condition and his father's. 2 differences. Okay? What are the 2 differences? Very, very key. There are a number of them we have been asked to give just 2. And if you go through the passage, you find areas containing that. And let's get through and see. Amusa found himself thinking about the days when he was himself a child. His own father had 2 wives and 13 children. Yet, as far as he could remember, the family had not faced anything. So we say what? He suddenly realized that this was because the times had changed and that the requirement of modern living, his father's time and age had been different. Now let's see the point now. He had been a successful farmer in the village and had lived in his own house. You see? Had lived in his own house. Amusa is not living in his own house. What? He's a tenant. So one big difference what? His father, lived in his own house and was what? A successful farmer. That could be one big difference. Amusa is a tenant living in one room. What about his father? What? He had a house on his own. You see? So that's one big difference. You see? He had a farm. On the other hand, Amusa had lived in the city on a limited income. You see, your father, Amusa's father is a farmer that has got, resources to take care of the entire family. But of course, for Amusa, he lived on a limited income. Very, very key at that. And what? And had no farmland. Yet, you see again, from his rental room to the smallest domestic. So you see, so this one key difference we have seen again there. And at 4 or 5 times, you see. So you see, this portion, as we outlined, in fact, and the one we have in fact looked at are the areas containing the differences, and we have been asked to give 2 differences, of course. So on the other hand, the first one, in fact, Amusa, we say 1. The father is successful, but Amusa, of course, is not. Then 2, then of course, Amusa is a tenant, but of course, his father had lived in his own house. So you see, very, very key at that. These are the 2 areas containing, there are 2 portions in the passage containing areas we'll consider for that kind of question. You see, so we refer to that kind of question as a content question, because it's a question that has got areas in the passage containing the answer. So you proceed. And what was even more unfortunate, so when you are asked about, let's see the question, what grammatical name is given to this expression as it is used in the passage, and what is its function? We have to go to the passage again. Don't depend on the excerpt. Go to the passage and survey the area the expression, of course, is found. So we see here, and what was even more unfortunate. You know, it's a typical noun clause. Okay, we have here subject, what is the subject? We have was there as the verb, and after everything we have what? We have, in fact, a verb after this expression, making this one a noun clause. It functions as the subject of the verb was in this case. So I'll not spend time looking at that one. Once you understand phrase and clause, this one you find it very, very easy. So the other thing to have in mind dealing with this one, when you are asked a question about a clause or phrase, under the question section, please come back to the passage. Okay, survey the area in which the expression is taken from, and then see how things go. So we proceed. You ask again, and had they not been able to take care of their families? We asked, and had they not been able to take care of the families? You see, so we asked, what literary device is used in this expression? What literary device? Meaning, what figure of speech? Okay. So when we are asked a question that hasn't got any answer, we say what? It is what? Rhetorical question. What does it mean? Well, it's what? So, and what? And are they not been able to take care of? So mean what? They were able to take care of their families. That's what it means. We are not being asked to tell what the figure of speech means. Okay? So that's it. We have a number of words to replace. We haven't got enough time to go through those words and show you in fact how they could be replaced. Okay, but we'll find time in our next edition to, in fact, we'll spend any time showing you out how to replace words, what to do in replacing words. Okay, but of course this hour will bring down our curtain for today's edition. I have been your presenter, Sonta. Please, if you want to sponsor our program, the door is open. Okay, we are supporting government flagship program, and this one we believe is a blessed venture. The door is open. Come to our aid. Support us to make it bigger, to provide more time for it, to all meetings outside, to involve more topics. Talking about, there are a number of things to look at. Yeah, we have oral English, we have summary, we have writing, we have a number of things to do to improve, speaking and writing. So we require assistance to have more time to do this one, and to even go outside the studio, and to provide the platform for everyone to, of course, understand the intricacies of the language. I've been your presenter, Sonta. Until Wednesday. Bye-bye.
Since the inception of the West African Senior Secondary School Certificate Examination, university requirement has largely called for 5 subjects. Mandatory among these are English language and mathematics. Every year, thousands of students run into the cause of either having to resit for not getting credits on English and mathematics, or painfully changing career path owing to same. To help modify this narrative, Star Television presents on your screen Learning Garage, a platform that guarantees better performance in English language and mathematics with a team of experienced teachers. To this solution, you all are invited, especially those facing WASC. Learning Garage comes to you on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Repeat broadcasts are screened on Saturdays from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. and on Sundays from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Join host Ali Sonta Kamara.
If you mean such element, then of course we say the waters of the world in that regard.
And Babatunde Gaira Lamin on these days to make a world of difference.
Fraction that has a numerator which is less than the denominator, we term it as a proper fraction.